Hello again, and welcome to episode 7 of SCNN, the Squared Circle News Network. As always, I'm your host, Aaron Patrick, and as always, I want to thank you all for taking the time to join me, clicking on this video. And as long as you're here, I got a special offer for anybody. Free of charge today, you can click the subscribe button, become a member of the network, become a follower, join, why not? Free of charge. And also, while you're here, click on that thumbs up. And you know what? If you don't like the video, click on the thumbs down and leave me a comment as to why you don't like it. Let's start a conversation. And as long as you're clicking on things, don't forget to click on the little bell, the bell icon. It's going to alert you every time that I upload new content. I want to start today with WWE news, and I'm going to jump right into the Daniel Bryan situation. Last week on SmackDown, of course, not yesterday, but the previous week, Daniel Bryan wrestled Roman Reigns in a career versus title match, and Bryan, of course, lost. And it was initially said that he was banned from SmackDown. So my initial thoughts are that's kind of WWE verbiage for he's going to show up on Raw. But things have changed since then, and there's a lot of different rumors, a lot of different speculation floating around the internet. This is going to take some time to sort through, and it's going to take some time to get the real answer as to what's happening. Bryan did wrestle his last match last Friday at SmackDown, and he's been removed from the active roster page at WWE.com and moved to the alumni section. I'm hearing different things on his contract status. Originally, everything online said that his contract was set to expire in September, but recent rumors have been popping up that his contract is expired now, that there is no compete clause in place right now, that he could show up literally anywhere next week. He could be on AEW on Wednesday. He could show up in New Japan. Anything can happen from what I'm hearing now, and I don't know exactly what is true on that front. Again, I'm going to keep my nose to the grindstone, keep scouring all the news sources, and as soon as I find out the actual truth of the Daniel Bryan contract situation, you're going to know right after I know. My thoughts on what Daniel Bryan's next move should be. Listen, my feelings towards the WWE have been made known since day one. But regardless of that, Daniel Bryan can literally go a lot of different ways. He's at a point in his career, and he's suffered serious injuries in the past, and there was a period of time a few years ago when it was thought that he may never wrestle again. So for Daniel Bryan to re-sign with the WWE, I really couldn't complain about that. I really couldn't have anything negative to say about that, simply because you know what? WWE will pay him a large sum of money to make sure that he doesn't go anywhere else, so he can definitely get a paycheck. They'll pretty much bend to whatever he needs or wants to get him under contract. I have heard rumors that Triple H is begging him to sign a contract, and understandably so. Daniel Bryan is a big name. Everybody knows who Daniel Bryan is, and Daniel Bryan will move the needle if he goes to a different company. But if he stays in the WWE, I get it. He could work a reduced schedule. He could possibly not have to wrestle at all. He could have some sort of on-screen character that doesn't involve him getting into the ring and putting his body through any more abuse or punishment. He could be a trainer. He could be a producer. There's so many different roles that Daniel Bryan is qualified to fill. He's a incredibly smart person as far as ring psychology and putting a match together. His in-ring work is impeccable. He's just one of those guys that just about anybody could get in the ring with Daniel Bryan, and it's going to be a good match just because he can elevate anybody's game. Also, he could still wrestle. He's physically capable of wrestling, and he could be a guy that, if used in the right way, you could put young talent, like young good talent who's just aching for a breakthrough. You could put them somehow in a program with Daniel Bryan. Let him start putting over the young talent and launching more careers. This, I believe, is the most implausible part of this whole thing, because Vince McMahon doesn't encourage young talent. He just doesn't do it. It's ridiculous, and as much as Daniel Bryan could make that aspect of the company shine and really launch some guys that deserve to finally be on screen and could be future main eventers and not have to worry about seeing Brock Lesnar brought out of retirement every year to wrestle at WrestleMania. It would be so beneficial to the overall WWE product, but I just don't see that happening with Vince McMahon. It's just an option that I bring up because it would make sense. As far as where else Daniel Bryan could go, anywhere he wants, basically. He could go to AEW and it would just be another feather in AEW's cap. He's one of those guys where as AEW's roster grows and you get to the point where you think maybe they need to slow down or maybe there's too much, Daniel Bryan is a guy that you could easily sign. I'm sure Tony Khan would pay him a very, very substantial amount of money to sign with the company. And he's a guy that you wouldn't have to have on TV every week. So Daniel Bryan would have the benefit of working a reduced schedule because he wouldn't have to be on week after week. He's established. He can work the way he wants to work. He can wrestle who he wants to wrestle. Basically, I'm going to say Daniel Bryan's a much bigger name than Christian Cage. But Christian Cage is doing this right now. He's been with AEW since, he signed that contract at the last pay-per-view. And hasn't been on TV every week. He's been on he's cut a few promos. He's wrestled 2 matches. That's a phenomenal schedule for a wrestler at the point of the career that he's in, and it would be the same for Daniel Bryan. Every match that he would be in would be highlighted. It would be spectacular, and it wouldn't be to the point where it's pushing it too far, where he could spend time with his family. He could take the time to relax and let his body recover some and work only as need be. I'd be all for that. Another big spot for Daniel Bryan to go would be, of course, New Japan Pro Wrestling. When Daniel Bryan started his career, he was the American Dragon. He was, he had that masked persona, and he would shine in New Japan. The New Japan crowd would absolutely fall in love with Daniel Bryan. I'm sure they're already very familiar and accustomed to him. Give him that shot. It would be amazing to see Daniel Bryan work in the G1 tournament in New Japan, to wrestle at Wrestle Kingdom. You could easily slide him right into a title match of some sort. Absolutely no doubt, a never open weight title. I know the Intercontinental title is no longer a thing, but there's other titles that he would certainly be able to work towards and make a great program in New Japan. The fans would love it. There's so many top-notch talents there that put in the ring with Daniel Bryan, the match would be just insane. I could see Daniel Bryan wrestling a Will Ospreay and possibly getting a title shot. I don't necessarily know that they would take the title off of Will Ospreay for Daniel Bryan, but the match would be just absolutely incredible. Absolutely no doubt. And so many other guys that he could work with. I could see him working with Minoru Suzuki. That would be just an unbelievable dream match. But again, no matter what Daniel Bryan decides to do at this point, just absolutely more power to him. If he stays in the WWE, good for him. I'm very happy for him. Let him get that big payday. Let him bank as much money as he can and take care of his family. It's just good for him. No matter what he decides, I'm completely behind him because Daniel Bryan is one of those guys, one of those good, solid guys that deserves to have things his way now. He's given everything that he can give into the WWE. There's no really new ground or new territory for him to explore there, but if he wants to stay there, he's comfortable there. He's been with the WWE for a lot of years. I have no problem with that. Young talent who is looking to break into professional wrestling, who has developed a track record on the indies, who's gotten noticed, who wants to do something in professional wrestling, I would say that's the wrong person to sign with the WWE because you're just going to get buried. You're going to sit on the bench. You're going to sit at home. You're going to be used for silly things like the 24/7 title or to sit at catering and just wait for something, anything, a supporting role at absolute best. And you're never going to really get where you want to get in professional wrestling by being a young talent and going to the WWE. But Daniel Bryan, 100% behind whatever he decides. Moving on to last night's SmackDown, WWE had their throwback episode of SmackDown, and when they first announced this, I was thinking it was going to be just another quick ratings grab, and I think that's not what everybody was thinking, but I think everybody was expecting something different because they did get a little bit of a ratings bump last night. And it really turned out just to be nothing special. It was, they tried to recreate the original or the old school WWE look. They had the old WWF logo without the F in it, of course. They had the fist coming out of the entrance ramp, but it wasn't actually, the fist wasn't there. It was just a holographic image. They showed clips of matches throughout the course of the night, old matches from the 90s. Teddy Long was there. It was just kind of ridiculous. I was originally thinking it was going to be another WWE bringing out their old wheelchair bound retired wrestlers to get on camera and bring in viewers that have kind of lapsed and gotten away because they just can't follow the product anymore. It's not anything that anybody really has, any of the fans from the better eras of the WWE have any interest in anymore. And I just expected that to be what they were going to do, but it just turned out to be even less than that. It was just video clips and, a couple of old appearances. But I guess the big takeaway from SmackDown last night was the return of Jimmy Uso. And of course, Jey Uso has been with Roman Reigns in this head of the table gimmick that they've been using Roman Reigns in the whole heel turn. And I'll give Roman Reigns his credit. It's to me, it's not the biggest heel in pro wrestling right now. And I know a lot of people would disagree with me, and I'm fine with that because it's really subjective and it's a matter of opinion. But I think the reason it shines in so many people's eyes and it's looked at as the best heel gimmick is because you put Roman Reigns on SmackDown and his gimmick is surrounded by so much garbage that it's really hard not to look as good as he looks right now and to be in people's minds the best thing in the WWE. It really is the best thing in the WWE. Is it the best thing in pro wrestling? I don't believe so. I don't agree with that. But it's certainly the best that WWE is offering right now, and it's good. It's definitely got its entertainment value, and I have no problem with it. But Jimmy Uso came out last night, and really the speculation, of course, was what's he going to do? Is he going to side with Roman Reigns and stick with his brother Jey and protecting Roman and being a part of that family table? Is he going to, break away from that pack and do his own thing? And I don't think the questions were really answered last night because it did, in the long run, turn out that he sided with Jey and Roman in beating down Cesaro. But it really, the show went off the air at that point. So I'm not really sure because during the course of the show, Jimmy was trying to convince Jey that the way that he was bowing down to Roman and sacrificing everything for Roman was garbage. Of course it is in a storyline. That's what it's meant to look like, and they're really successfully pulling that off. So Jimmy was definitely trying to break Jey out of that whole subservient role and get him involved back in the tag team, which I'll tell you what, if they wind up having the Usos feud with each other, it's just going to be another example of Vince McMahon destroying another top tier tag team. These guys should be a tag team. They need to rejuvenate that tag team division. They need to fix it. It has to be fixed. It's so destroyed right now. And the Usos they're a great team. They're a top tier team. They'd be an amazing addition to any company who has a good tag team division. And any tag team, any devoted tag team like the Usos, and I'm not counting guys like Morrison and Miz. It's a patchwork put together tag team, and that's what WWE seems to have the most of. Is they just take two guys and throw them together and put them in a tag team, and then they break up the dedicated tag teams, the Usos. I'm not saying they're broke up yet because we don't know how this is going to play out. But Heavy Machinery, the list goes on and on. This is what they do. They tear apart tag teams and then they make patchwork tag teams. Doesn't make sense. and it does absolutely nothing for their tag team division. And I think they pretty much openly don't care about their tag team division. There's never been any apologies for what they're doing with the tag team division. They've never come out and said, oh, we're going to really make our tag team division stronger, make it one of the best in pro wrestling. They've done none of that. It's just, it is what it is. So it is another thing. We're going to have to wait and see how this plays out. But the one thing that I have to say does interest me in this whole storyline is the way they're pushing Cesaro. They're making Cesaro look really strong. He beat Seth Rollins again. He did some damage against Roman Reigns and the Usos. Cesaro should have started getting this push a long time ago. He is that good. The guy physically is incredible. I've looked up stats of how strong Cesaro is and how much he bench presses, because he's not that big super bodybuilder. Yes, he's very defined, he's very muscular, but he's very lean, and you wouldn't look at this guy and say that he could out bench press, I don't know, any big guy on that roster, any of the biggest guys. He's one of the strongest out of all. I think he's right up there with Mark Henry as far as strength, and he might be even a little bit stronger. So I've been wondering for years why Cesaro hasn't gotten this kind of push, but it's finally getting there. The question is this going to be something that Vince McMahon is going to stick behind, or is it going to be another one of these things that he gets hot and heavy on for a couple weeks and then abandons, just pretty much like everything else? So fingers crossed for Cesaro. I think he's an uber talented wrestler. He's deserved this for a long time, and hoping the best for him. And I'll be keeping track of this because I am definitely interested to see where they go with this. I'm going to move on to AEW, and I was debating whether starting with this story, putting it in the middle, or ending with it, because this is gonna change my mood. Of course, just this past Wednesday they had the first Blood and Guts match in AEW, and by all accounts, this match was phenomenal. These guys put everything on the line. They bled, they suffered, they walked out with lingering injuries and bruises and scars and you name it. They really went 100% in this match, every single one of them to a man, and they made this a memorable match. This is what War Games is supposed to be, not what WWE did to it in NXT. This is the way War Games pretty much kind of started back in the day when in the day when the Four Horsemen were involved, and it was actually taken up another couple notches beyond that because they went crazy in this match. Every guy gave everything he had, and this was just a great match. This is one of the top probably 3-4 matches in the history of AEW since they started. Everything was just incredible about this match. And then you've got the online podcasters and critics and fans and anti-AEW marks who are just salivating and chomping at the bit, criticizing and destroying the ending where Chris Jericho took the bump off the top of the cage. Look, if you're going to tell me that AEW sucks or this match wasn't good because of that one moment, you seriously are pathetic. And normally I say things as a matter of opinion, and I truly believe that. I truly believe that everybody has the right to their opinion, but this is just pure stupidity. This is just people looking for a reason to criticize AEW. They did everything that they could do to make that the most compelling, the most interesting match of the year. They pulled it off. And you're going to tell me at that point at the end, first of all, there was very few ways that this match could end. You couldn't let anybody just take a clean submission, I quit, surrender in this match, because you had to make everybody look strong, and everybody did look strong. Every single man in this match was strong. You had to find a way to end this match where it made sense, and it wasn't ridiculous like the Seth Rollins Fiend Hell in a Cell match where the referee called for a no contest. That would have just absolutely lit up the internet in a different way, but the way that people are criticizing this finish is ridiculous. You had Chris Jericho, who is pretty much a 50-year-old man. He's a year or two away from 50, who has probably all sorts of lingering, ongoing issues with injuries and just parts of his body that don't feel the way they did before he started wrestling. And you're going to have him take the bump that he did, and people are pissed off because he fell into a soft spot, because there was padding, because there was cardboard that was made to look like diamond plate. Look, I don't care. He went off the cage. He took the bump. If you're going to focus on that, okay, yeah, maybe AEW could have used a different camera angle. But you have your first and foremost priority, your biggest concern is protecting Chris Jericho. You're not, back when Matt Hardy came off the scissor lift and missed the table and cracked his head on the concrete, everybody criticized Tony Khan. Oh, you jeopardized Matt Hardy's life. It was dangerous. It was this. It was that. Should have never let him back in the ring. Tony Khan was the bad guy then. Now Tony Khan's the bad guy again. He's Mr. Disappointing Ending. No, he's not. This is, the exploding barbed wire match was another point of criticism, and I get that one a little bit more. The ending explosion was disappointing, but you have to protect the safety of the wrestlers. And yeah, they went a little light. They went a lot light in that exploding barbed wire match, but this was completely acceptable. Chris Jericho fell into a safe environment. And I'm sorry if it didn't live up to your expectations and he didn't bust through actual diamond plate and he didn't crash through a wooden platform into a pile of foam underneath the stage. I'm happy Chris Jericho's okay. And I'm grateful that Chris Jericho put on another spectacular match, because that's what he does. That's why he's a candidate for the GOAT. He is that good. And if this bothers you so much and you think AEW is so Bush League and you think Tony Khan can't handle this, stop watching. Plain and simple. If you're that much of a critic and you can do better, here's an idea. Start your own wrestling promotion. Put on your own televised matches and make them look so realistic and so error-free that everybody in the world is just salivating every week, wondering what's going to be the next big bump and how you're going to keep the wrestler safe and what are you going to do next. Tony Khan is doing a spectacular job. Every talent there is doing their best. And I'm not saying this like in a schoolyard situation where you've got a bunch of kids who never played basketball before, who get in a pickup game in gym class, and they're trying, but they're failing miserably. That's another case where you say, well, they're doing their best. That's not what I mean here with AEW. Their best is phenomenal. You can't look at a single Dynamite show since they started and take any show and say that was terrible. Yes, some shows are better than others. Yes, some shows are 5 stars and some shows are 3 stars. Some shows are 2.5 stars. But there's good in every show. And you're not going to tell me that AEW is not a good product or Tony Khan is not a good booker or producer or owner because of the fact that he protected Chris Jericho. It's insane and it's not logical. It makes no sense. Frankly, it's a stupid argument. And I'm going to leave it at that. I was completely happy with this match. It lived up to all my expectations. It was everything I hoped it would be. It was everything that in my mind I thought it would be and more. I mean, they went farther than I thought they would. There was chair shots to the head again. There was just everybody bled. Everybody bled. And it was spectacular. And I'm happy with it. And good job to Tony Khan and all the talent in AEW, and thank you so much for everything you do every week and every pay-per-view. I appreciate it. And I'm just one person and not worth a pile of beans, but I appreciate it. In other news in AEW, I wanted to talk about, in a previous episode of this podcast, I talked about the possibility of Tessa Blanchard and her husband Dega signing with AEW. And I talked about the whole issue that Tessa Blanchard is living with, the whole thing that she went through with the supposed racist comments in the whole Speak Out movement. And, I try to not pass judgment without knowing the facts. And really, there is no video footage, no audio recordings, no anything proving that Tessa Blanchard said the things that she was accused of saying. But in a realistic world and a realistic point of view, usually where there's smoke, there's fire. And it wasn't just one person that said that Tessa Blanchard had some derogatory things to say. So, you know what? There's a chance that she did say some things that in this political climate and really in any sense of just any place in a rational world, you shouldn't go there. You shouldn't say the things that she said, supposedly said. Don't know for sure. But what I'm getting at is I want to give her the benefit of the doubt in the fact that this is professional wrestling. And yes, it's scripted, but you know what? When you're in the ring with someone and you're taking a stiff shot, you're taking a punch to the face, you're taking a kick to the midsection, you're getting hit with a kendo stick or a chair or whatever other objects they can get their hands on. At some point, tempers flare. You can't go into a situation like that and beat on someone or let somebody beat on you. And believe me, you say what you want about professional wrestling being scripted and predetermined, but these wrestlers they legitimately take a beating in so many ways. And, the fact that their careers run short and, you can see retired wrestlers trying to come back and not being able to do it just because this punishment takes its toll on a human body. So what I'm getting at is when you're hitting on someone like that, when you're punching, kicking, using weapons, tempers are going to flare. There's going to be conflicts. There's going to be two people digging at each other. And in a backstage setting, you're off camera, you get into it with somebody over something that happens in a match. Unfortunately, in human nature, when you get to a certain point of frustration and anger, ugliest part of humanity comes out of you. And you say things that you shouldn't say. And, it's a fact. It is what it is. It's ugly, but it's reality. And to have a slip up, to be in a situation where you're that angry, where you get that ugly and say something so derogatory and so off color and so unprofessional, you can't judge a person's entire character on that one moment. It's not fair. Too many people have lost their careers off of, comments that were meant to be tongue in cheek, maybe a little bit funny, maybe whatever. And it's been blown so out of proportion that careers have been destroyed over things like this. And look, I'm not saying that it's okay for anybody to be racist, but I'm also saying that people shouldn't be so thin-skinned that there's just no understanding that a person in the heat of the moment or in a bad choice of words in an entertainment type venue says something that's determined to be off color or whatever. You can't judge an entire life, an entire career on a moment. It's not fair. It doesn't mean somebody is racist or somebody is ugly or hateful or whatever else just because they screwed up for a second. Everybody screws up at some point. I'd be willing to bet that every single person of every color, ethnic origin, whatever, at some point in their lives says something that can be judged as racist or derogatory or whatever. And you're not going to tell me that everybody in the world is bad. It's just not true. You got to understand that human nature and the human mind functions in a way that a lot of people don't understand, and you can't judge somebody's entire life on a moment. And I'm going to leave it at that. But what I'm getting at here is Tessa Blanchard and Dega. It was reported last week by SEScoops.co that they've been in ongoing negotiations for over a month with AEW, and I don't know how dependable SEScoops.co is. I don't get a lot of news sources from them. Sometimes something like this pops up, but they're reporting that it's really just a matter of time and a formality when they put pen to paper and put their names on contracts. And I think it would be a great move for AEW. AEW since day one has struggled with its women's division. It is what it is. They had a hard time putting it together. There was a lot of unpopularity with Joshi wrestlers from Japan. And my feelings on women's wrestling, regardless of that, to build this women's division, it's already on the upswing. You've got Thunder Rosa, who came in from the NWA and really made a big impact. And you've got Brit Baker, who finally is coming into her own. From day one, she was supposed to be the face of the women's division. And she definitely had the look and the microphone skills, but her in-ring work was terrible for a considerable amount of time. And now it's come along to the point where she can finally be that face of the women's division. Hikaru Shida, the women's champion, she's talented. She definitely can pull off the role. You've got Chris Statlander's coming back from injury. This women's division is finally coming together. And Tessa Blanchard, with her resume and her background, she would definitely stack this women's division even more. So Tony Khan is a very careful man. Tony Khan is not going to take chances with signing somebody that's going to cause a huge disruption and a lot of problems off camera backstage. He didn't waste any time suspending Sammy Guevara with the whole Sasha Banks incident. And I thought that whole thing was blown way out of proportion because Sammy Guevara said something stupid when he was like barely, 22 years old. What guy at that age that sees an attractive woman in whatever form isn't going to say something stupid? Sammy Guevara wasn't actually thinking about going out and raping Sasha Banks. It was made into something that it shouldn't have been made into. But considering the climate at the time, with everybody that was coming out and telling their story and all the issues that were going on, it had to be addressed. And Tony Khan wasted no time in suspending Sammy Guevara, sending him to sensitivity training, and not letting him back on camera until he made it right. And he did. And, Sammy's been back and he's had no issues since. He's an unbelievable worker, just a complete asset to the company. So this is what I'm saying. Tony Khan's not stupid, and he's not going to do anything dangerous. And if he signs Tessa Blanchard, he's going to do all of his due diligence to make sure that nothing like this is going to happen again. And if it does, she'll be out the door faster than you can blink. But I think she would be a great addition to this women's division. And her husband Daga is, I haven't seen much of him, little clips on YouTube, things like that. I think he'd be a great addition to the current men's division. He'd probably start on AEW Dark and Elevation, and let him build up and let him get some big national TV time and really see what he can do in the ring, because I think he's a talented wrestler, and I think he'd be a great addition. So it's going to be something we're going to follow. If Tessa Blanchard does show up, I would imagine it's not going to be that far off. Possibly the next pay-per-view. I could easily see Britt Baker defeating Hikaru Shida at Double or Nothing, and see Tessa Blanchard come out and possibly attack Britt Baker from behind, or whatever challenge. If she's going to come in as a face, just make an outright challenge without an attack. Well, we'll see. We'll wait and see, and whatever happens there, it's going to be interesting. Now, on the next edition of Dynamite, we're going to be seeing the Jon Moxley defending the New Japan United States title against Yuji Nagata. And Yuji Nagata, this is another step in the Forbidden Door being kicked open. And Yuji Nagata has been with New Japan since the 90s. He had a brief time where he left the company, went to wrestle somewhere else. I apologize, I don't remember exactly where it was, but it was in the early 2000s. And he's been back with New Japan ever since then. It was a short time away. And this is just another example of New Japan using its talent in the right way. I'm looking forward to this match. The more New Japan talent that you get on AEW, the happier I'm going to be. I just want to see a full-blown invasion, a full-blown super card with New Japan, AEW, and you can throw Impact in there. They're not going to really move the needle, but to springboard off of this, not Thursday's issue of Impact, but the week before, they showed a vignette or just an advertisement showing that New Japan's El Phantasma was going to be making an appearance on Impact. And on top of that, in their Rebellion pay-per-view, where Kenny Omega won the Impact World title, they ran a little bit of a sizzle reel, and it showed the likenesses of Tetsuya Naito and Kazuchika Okada as making appearances coming up on Impact. And this is another thing that's got me fired up some, because to me this is a complete waste of New Japan's talent and resources. Obviously the whole point of sending your talent from Japan to wrestle on a U.S. television wrestling show is to get eyes on your product. And New Japan needs more North American eyes on their product, because they, as I said many times before, they have the premier product and in-ring product in professional wrestling. I can't think of any organization that top to bottom has better workers in the ring than they do. As good as AEW is, as deep as the WWE roster is, when you watch a top tier match in New Japan Pro Wrestling, nothing compares to it. Go back and do what you can to see the Kenny Omega versus Kazuchika Okada matches, the matches that they had leading up to and including the match where Omega won the IWGP Heavyweight title. These are 6-star matches for a reason. They're the absolute best you can get, and they just put it all in the ring. The strong style, it's a little rougher on the bodies of the wrestlers, but their whole goal is to be the best in-ring product, and they're pulling it off. They're doing it. And the whole point of sending your talent to the United States is to get North American eyes on your product and draw more fans to the New Japan, the world streaming service, and to their shows and to what they're running in the U.S. now. The whole point is viewers and eyes. What are you benefiting from sending your people to Impact? I would really love to see somebody within the New Japan organization show me a breakdown of what they expect to gain by putting top tier guys like Kazuchika Okada and Tetsuya Naito on Impact. Nobody cares. Nobody watches Impact. The audience, the cluster of audience is so small, it's ridiculous. I look at Impact and believe me, there's some really good wrestlers in Impact. If I was running an organization, a promotion, and I could pick from their talent pool and sign some guys, I would sign Moose. I would probably try and sign Rich Swann. There's a lot of talent there. There's Willie Mack is unbelievable. He'd probably be my first pick. He is so underrated. This guy should have been the Impact champion. He should have had titles in Impact already. He's that good and beyond that. But, to me, Impact is nothing more than a development organization for the rest of professional wrestling. It's a talent pool for AEW and WWE and whoever else might be able to write a decent paycheck to look at and say, hey, I want to sign that guy. But to send to especially in this era of the virus, you're going to jump through all the hoops that you need to jump through to send somebody to the U.S., the cost of it, the stress on the talent, the resources you have, and you're going to put them on Impact. There's no benefit from that. If you're going to send talent to the U.S., do like you're doing with Yuji Nagata and put them on AEW. AEW is on a major network. Impact is on Access. AEW has been drawing 1 million viewers a week now, except for the week before last, before Blood and Guts, they dipped to about 800,000. But I think there was some sort of presidential statement on TV that took some of the viewers away. But they're drawing 1 million viewers a week right now, and you're gonna put these guys on Impact. You want attention, you bring them to AEW. Kenny Omega going to Rebellion, the Impact pay-per-view, and wrestling for the Impact Championship gave them the first big bump in pay-per-view buys that they've had probably since the era where the NWO and Ric Flair and Kurt Angle were in Impact. They've been a dead organization since then, and this was the first time that they had a bump in buys, and it was because of somebody from AEW, from somebody who gets in front of 1 million viewers a week and is as talented as Kenny Omega is. But Kenny Omega moved the needle in Impact because people know who he is. Outside of the hardcore wrestling fans, who's going to really know that anybody from New Japan is wrestling on Impact and search through their cable guide to find access to watch it? It's not going to happen. You want to start that progression, you start on AEW, you start on TNT. Beyond that, everything else is silliness. I don't understand. And I could rant on this for a long time, but I don't want to get to the point where I'm going to say something that I'm going to say, man, I shouldn't have said that. So I'm going to cut it short right there. Again, I apologize. It took me a little while to get this episode up. I was having some technical issues again last week, and hopefully I've got that all worked out right now. My goal is to keep improving the quality of my broadcast and to keep adding to what I'm doing. So getting over these little speed bumps and then working on just overall improving production quality and adding little things is my goals, and putting up more content. I would like to put up 2 to 3 broadcasts a week on the YouTube episodes. I want to do these regular news reports, and I want to do some extras and things like that, but we're getting there, and I'm going to keep at it, and I'm going to keep doing this. And again, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate everybody being here and viewing the episode. Again, click the subscribe button, click the like button, click the thumbs down button if you choose. Just like I said, if you're going to do that, leave a comment, a respectful comment, and let's discuss. Maybe I can change your mind. But beyond that, again, as always, I'm your host, Darren Patrick. This has been Squared Circle News Network, SCNN. Be good to yourselves and be good to each other. Thank you.